Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and of course, unauthorized TV. Welcome to the Reprehensibles, to the VFM, to the Dread Ilk, and of course, to the Bears. So, I still haven't gotten the videos up on unauthorized. Sorry about that. Going to try to work on that tomorrow. But I've actually been working all day on something that I'm sure some of you are going to be very pleased to hear about. But first, I do want to praise Nick the Knife. It was really fascinating hearing all about the way that he and his fans completely demolished Charlie Kirk. He's doing good work. And so, always happy to see that. I was talking to Owen a bit, and he was the one who actually told me about it. I didn't really know anything about it. And he was talking about how awesome it was. And, the thing that was important, I think, is to understand that we're men. We have disagreements. And that's fine. We understand the difference between people that we might happen to disagree with, people that we might have differences with, and people who are actually on the other side. The fake right is not on our side. Okay? A lot of the people that we used to think well of, the Jonah Goldbergs of the world, the national. That's why it's important to praise people like Nick when they do things that actually stand up for the good, the beautiful, the true, the nation, Jesus Christ, etc. Nick Fuentes is far ahead of where I was at his age. And so, and of course, I never had any problem with him at all. My only conversations with him have been uniformly positive. And so, I'm sure that in the future, someone will attempt to throw something I've said at him or something he's said at me. But, it's all, don't fall for the drama. Don't fall for the attempts to stir up a let's you and him fight situation. What side is the Vatican on? Not ours. Not the current Vatican. So, and believe me, I don't have 1/100th as much to say about it as some of my Catholic friends. So, anyhow, what I've been working on today is Castalia Deluxe, which I think will be happy to hear about. And what we're there's I think about 350 of you who have indicated that you want to sign up for it. And the reason is pretty simple. They're going to be awesome books that are going to be collectible, and we're working on making sure that this is going to be the premier collection of books that is produced in the next 20 years. Our goal is to become the new Franklin Library, and provide knowledge in a form that can survive for 200 years, 300 years. So it was interesting because I've now learned far more than I wanted to about skiving and goats and why cowhide is generally perceived to be better than pigskin and so forth. I'd like to say that it was open up the actual deluxe subscriptions now if we wanted to, but I want to wait until we get sell maybe 10 of each initially. So, but the deluxe books are going to be fantastic. Genuine gold on the spines, good quality cowhide. It's all going to be fantastic. I mean, remember, I'm a book collector myself, and so I'm not going to. I'm going to make these as great as they possibly can be. Yep, Big Bear is going to be supplying the goat skin, so he's got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. No, we're not putting latches on the deluxe books. We want them to be able to fit in libraries. Latches are bad if you have libraries. Well, if you're allergic to goats, then you should probably stick to deluxe. Let's see. Hobby Bear says the old publishers overextended, it seems. I don't think so. I think what happened is financialization. And Franklin Mint, as far as I recall, is still around, but I think that they realized that for the same amount of money, they could make more, be more profitable selling coins and stamps rather than books, because books are much more work. So, how does Barnes & Noble sell bonded leather books for $15? They probably acquired them. I mean, it's either that or they're just losing money on them. You can also ask, how can YouTube possibly support all of these various, all the bandwidth that they support? The answer is pretty simple. They lose $1 billion a year. I have no idea if stamp collecting is making a comeback. I'm just pointing out that when companies get really big and then the finance people start chopping things away because, for X amount of money, they want to make X times Y amount of money. And anything they do, no matter how profitable, gets cut. So for example, I have a friend who ran a very profitable game studio, and it was cut by one of the big game developers because they had decided to cut every studio that had less than 25 million in revenue. They didn't care that if a studio was bringing in $20 million a year and only had $5 million in expenses, bringing in $15 million in profit a year, they didn't care. Gone. And so what that does is it creates opportunities for smaller companies who are going, 15 million a year? That sounds awesome. So, that's what we're doing. 820 volt bear notes that Netflix is $20 billion in debt. Yeah, that's what we are going to. That's one of the things that we're going to replace eventually, I believe, if we play our cards right down the road. I would do it in a heartbeat. We just have to get the rights. My shield is disgusted. Says, if you do the Silmarillion in Castalia Library, I will personally cast down 1,000 skulls at the foot of your dark throne. If we can get the rights, we'll do it. No question. So, Grime Knight called it. Sounds like an EA move. There you go. Charlie the Chaste is joyfully supporting the replatforming campaigns. Yeah, that's going extremely well. Thanks to all of you. We are already at 1,167 replatformers. And it looks like we are going to continue it as long as people, until either there's a deplatforming attempt or you know, we'll probably just keep it going. And, I know it might sound a little crazy to sell new ebooks for $1 and new audiobooks for $3, but what we're going to do is just keep it going. And so anyhow, the Corporate Cancer will be out for the November. And well, yeah, the paperbacks, the paperbacks will be available. And then I think that I'm not sure which book we're going to do for December, but we've got about 3 different possibilities. And of course, I need to clear it with the authors because it doesn't work out so well for the authors, but Corporate Cancer, obviously, that being my book, we can just do that. So not a problem. Is there enough wine for all the skulls? Oh, there's plenty of wine. Plenty. Rocky Mountain Bear said, I swore I wouldn't use Patreon after their BS deplatforming. Then the SDL sent me an email. Hobby Bear is correct. Ebooks and audiobooks are both included for the Heroes of the Revolution. So, I was not impressed by someone wearing a shirt at a sporting event, but that's funny. Yeah, but trust me, if you're somebody who doesn't want to support a platform, feel free to do so. I promise you. Because here's the thing that I learned today. This was an interesting little thing to read. It's up on the blog. You can see it if you want. But I'm one of the lawyers who writes terms of service for software companies. We try to make these terms as short and clear as possible, because if we don't, it means people either won't use the products or they may sue the company, both of which are terrible results for the company. Now, isn't that interesting? And then if you look at what actually happens, what all the social media and the software companies are all trying to force you into arbitration in order to keep you out of court. But the dirty little secret, and you can look this up, is that nobody does it. Literally nobody does it. The number of consumer arbitrations that are not debt related that take place on an annual basis, it's numbered in the dozens. That's all. It's just absolutely incredible. But what that means is that they have no experience of this stuff. None. Most of their lawyers have never actually been in an adversarial legal situation. You can look it up. If you go to the district court or the county records, whatever, and look up these companies, you can see that the number of legal battles they've been in is usually less than you can count on one hand. What this means is nobody is challenging them. And that's what the title of this stream is, SJWs Drink Your Tears. This is possibly one of the worst reactions to a deplatforming I've ever seen. You may have heard that Sabo, the conservative artist, was deplatformed by PayPal very recently. And there's a story on PJ Media. It says, on Monday evening, Sabo, the conservative street artist who is mostly known for his street pop posters that randomly pop up in California, reported on his Facebook page that he has now been kicked off PayPal. Today, PayPal canceled my account with all my money in it. Why were you keeping all your money in PayPal in the first place? Rookie mistake number 1. They're holding my funds for the next 6 months. This deplatforming hits him hard financially. I explained to them that I live in a city with 60,000 homeless people and that they are about to make me and my wife join their ranks. That's the point. That's their goal. They want to hurt you. They want to harm you. So running to the media and crying about it is simply the icing on the cake as far as they're concerned. They don't have a conscience. They think you're evil. They think they've done a good thing. They are drinking his tears. What is it that they don't like? You can read what they don't like right there. What is a terrible result for them? A terrible result, according to one of the lawyers who writes terms of service for software companies, is the company getting sued. They genuinely fear that, and they don't want that. But they don't believe you're going to do that. Why? Because you're going to cry. Because they know all you're going to do is run to the media, hope they'll give you some attention, and cry about it. That's it. So of course they keep doing what they're doing. I mean, I could probably tell you a company that's probably not going to be doing a lot of it, but I'm not going to. And I can tell you right now that Patreon is probably going to be very safe for everybody concerned about deplatforming in the near future. So, why? Because people are standing up to them. Because people are finally beginning to fight back on the very turf that they do not want to fight on. Yes, they have an amount of money, but most of them, you know, not everybody is Google. Not everybody is Facebook. But they're not as big as you think. Patreon's total annual revenue is $50 million. It's not bad, but they can't afford indefinite legal action. Look at how many people are on Patreon, right? And so, we're absolutely 100% ready. Thanks to you guys, we are 100% ready for a potential deplatforming. There is literally nothing related to that project that would please me more than to see them deplatform it. I would welcome it. Oh, hey, we've got a retarded Calvinist here. Do you believe in free will, Vox? Yes. If so, how do you explain God being sovereign? Because sovereign doesn't have anything to do with free will, you moron. Queen Elizabeth is sovereign over England. Does that mean she controls everybody's actions in England? No. Just don't bring your weak redefinitions here. It's a good way to get banned. And if you don't believe me, read a freaking dictionary. It's always funny to me when people try to pose these trick questions. It's like, do you not realize that I am vastly more intelligent than you are? I mean, it's really not that difficult. No, Calvinists are fine. They just, all of their arguments tend to be based on redefinitions. It's easy. It's very, very easy to deal with. Just look it up. Read my debate with Team Calvin. We've covered a lot of these things. Anyhow, back to the point. There's no point in crying. There's no point in being upset. You already know that SJWs hate you. It's and your band. So, anyhow, I thought, there we go. So the point is that either fight or run away, but either way, those are your options. Crying about it will do nothing. They enjoy that. They want to harm you. They want to harm your family. And the sooner that you understand that, the sooner you can join the fight. The sooner that you can actually begin to make a difference. All of you who were, I hope that all of you who were patrons of Owen's Patreon have emailed him to let him know. It's important, so make sure that you do that. Also, all of you who have signed up to back the replatforming, be aware that if they're dumb enough to do it, we'll be in touch. I assure you. Movement Explorer has it right. The enemy will not stop using chemical weapons until you use them back. Precisely. Welcome, Pierre Truc. If you're just going to cry, if you're just going to protest that it's not fair, that's going to do you about as good as it did when you were complaining that the big schoolyard bully wasn't being fair. He's not fair. He knows he's not fair. So it's just, Grime Knight says, I still see people being shocked at how low our opponents will go to deplatform us. It's like, yeah, we're their enemies. Exactly. And so, take it seriously. Stop worrying about these things and be prepared for it. You should always be prepared for it. 12 Gauge Bear is right. Culture war is like Stalingrad. If you don't have a rifle, at least carry some ammo and advance anyway. Excluding the classics like Poe and Shelley, what's the best horror fiction you've ever read? Maupassant. There is literally the darkest, most horrifying thing I've ever read is a short story by Guy de Maupassant. Let's see. You can't do the equivalent of an NBA player crying to the ref because he missed a foul while the other team is about to score on the other end. Also, the refs are bought off. Exactly. How to communicate in a liberal job environment when you want to keep a job? Dissemble. Make things look, be honest, but make things look like they are not. Lovecraft made me sleep with the lights on. I like Lovecraft a lot. Actually, that was probably the one story that scared me most at the time. It was a Lovecraft story. And literally in the first page, this guy went to his friend's house, discovered these terrible inhuman tracks in his friend's blood, read the papers that his friend had, burned the papers, and slashed his own throat. I thought that was probably the scariest thing that I'd ever come across at the time. I didn't even keep reading it. I don't know that I ever. I was at a friend's house and I read like those 2 pages and that was it. Like I couldn't read anymore. I mean, I was pretty young. It's the one about the horse. The horse and the young boy. I don't remember the name of it. But I do remember finishing it and then just staring at the ceiling for half an hour afterwards. Just, you know, it was just completely despairing at the state of man. So, any news on JDA's book deplatforming? I believe they're bringing it back. It may actually already be back, as far as I know. You know, Russell from Silver Empire left a comment on my blog that seemed to indicate that everything had been taken care of. Yeah, Drake just confirmed it. It's back on Amazon again. Amazon's actually fairly reasonable. We had a run-in with them months ago, and you know, it turned out to just be a random employee. But again, this is what happens when you don't just go running to the media and cry about it. When you stand up and make it clear that you're going to stand on your rights, and you're not going to just accept being treated as if you can't defend yourself, then most of the time they don't want to battle. Will the Cleveland Browns ever be good? Possibly, but not this year. I didn't buy into all the hype myself. You know, I understand why they had some hope, but again, you know, if you look at all the really good teams, it usually begins with the offensive line. Does Amazon even turn a profit? Not much of one. I've been demoted from center midfield. Do you have any tips on how to play there or to develop the skills to play there? No, it's too late for you. Playing center mid requires better technical skills than most people, better ball control. If you don't have that at your age, you're not going to develop it. Hobby Bear is glad the bookbinders realize how excited we are to work with them. Yeah, they're all fired up too. I mean, it's very positive. You know, I actually had a meeting tonight. We sorted some things out. They answered some questions about some of the way that they do things and some terminology I was unfamiliar with, and we're getting it all sorted out. Was Prince really an outstanding basketball player? He wasn't outstanding, but he was good. He played for Minneapolis North, and at the time, they were one of the best basketball teams in the state. I mean, he wasn't like the star of the team or anything, but he was a legitimate player. Relentlessly positive. I wouldn't say they're quite as relentlessly positive as we were, but it's good. I mean, they're legitimately enthusiastic about what they see the long-term potential for the program that we're creating. You know, the big test is going to be, you know, because we actually have, you know, like with Castalia House, we have a nice little business that does well within its framework. The big question is going to be if we can produce stuff that is going to be of interest to the collectors. And I think we can, because no one is really serving that market particularly well. Let's see the super chats here. Let's see, so Tom Hoyt sent $10. Thank you. Marcus Aurelius says, why do they hate Francesco Franco? Because he defeated the socialists. The left thought they had won, and he ended up completely overturning their victory. And Rotogan says, thanks for everything, Vox. Rogan's up. Defiance Bear says, I'll never back off a spider because it squirms. Hundreds of biting spider allies will make me think. Exactly. That's the general principle. All right, and we're caught up. Just about. Hello, Vox. I'm a King James Version guy. Would you recommend a study Bible? If so, which one? I don't have any particular recommendations other than stay away from the Schofield. So, it was, I don't know if you saw the blog today, but one thing that really struck me and that amazed me about the Republican Party is they are handing, the left is handing Republicans victory in the next election. And thank you, Pragmatic Troll. He backed the Leather Junior Classics today. They're going to be really good. We were working on them today. But the fascinating thing is that here you've got Republican weakness with suburban white women who are, very much the sort of mothers and daughters who are involved in who are involved with sports in some way. And they are the ones who are most negatively affected by these ridiculous so-called transgenders that are entering their sports and beating up on them. And, and this angers them more than just about anything you can imagine. It's a perfect wedge item that Republicans can use to absolutely destroy the Democrats who are just going along with all this insanity. In one state, I'm not sure where it was, South Carolina, North Carolina, the Republican candidate pointed out that the other candidate had endorsed transgender athletes and improved his standing by something like 20 points. It's a huge issue. It's a massive issue. And yet, who's using it? Why aren't they calling people out for that? But anyhow, if Trump uses that in the presidential election, it's going to be even more of a Trump slide than we imagine. Yes, we already talked about what Nick the Knife has been doing to Charlie Kirk and the other neo-clowns. Scott says, do you think the recent events with Nick Fuentes will help him? Certainly. I mean, he's doing a great job. I think that it'll certainly help him increase his standing in terms of how people see him. I think it's great. I mean, I don't pay enough attention to the fake right to do that sort of thing. I don't even know who Charlie Kirk is. I wouldn't recognize a picture of him if I mean, I've literally no idea who the guy is, other than I know that he's, another fake right conservative. Anyhow, I'm glad to see that the younger nationalist right is stepping up to the plate. That's great. That's much more important than, posturing like Ben Shapiro. Kirk is one of Prager's boys. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even a little bit surprised. So, no, I mean, this is never going to be a channel like Owen's or like Nick's. I mean, I'm not going to get on and rant for 3 hours, and I'm not going to get everybody all whipped up and fired up because, I'm usually streaming late at night. I'm pretty mellow anyhow, and it's just not my style. So, but I love the fact that, people like, younger guys like Owen, even younger guys like Nick, are calling out the very people that were deceiving them and misleading them. And that's great. So Michael Cisternino says, your style is great. Well, if you're here, you're probably more amenable to it than a more animated, more active style. I haven't gotten involved in the replatforming. You can see the link below the video. Do you still push for personal strength records at the gym? Absolutely not. It's funny how at my age, just how easy it is to get injured. I was planning on going to a high intensity course yesterday, and somehow over the weekend, I somehow dinged my knee enough that I realized that doing the squatting and jumping exercises were quite possibly going to injure it more. So I just thought, okay, season just ended. Let's give ourselves some time to recuperate, get healthy again. But I've been to the gym the last 2 days. It's all good. Vox's trance music, Big Bear is the Cannons and the 1812 Overture. That's probably a fair assessment. I love trance. The Orb is one of my all-time favorites. In fact, after David Sylvian, the Orb with Little Fluffy Clouds on it would be one of my would possibly be my desert album one. Esther suggests that Rogan jumped me and I didn't see him. That might have been it. Maybe he went for my knee. Dr. Azume said, what role do you see yourself playing in this war for the West? I sort of envision you as a curator of information and strategist. Am I far off? Actually, I see myself as more of a historian. I'm an observer. I'm not really an actor. The only reason that I've gotten involved in any acting is because I was personally attacked, personally deplatformed. They didn't give me any choice. Now that's possible. 808 State. Da, 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 da. That was good. I actually saw them at First Avenue. They were awesome because they came out and promptly, because everyone were kind of looking, going, "Is their stuff set up right? It's kind of backwards." And they come out, turn their backs to the crowd, and pay no attention to the crowd whatsoever. It was one of my favorite shows ever. Seth James said, "Hey Vox, this is off topic, but would you consider doing a Darkstream on your time in the music industry?" I mean, I suppose. I mean, it's an awful long time ago, and practically everybody that I knew at Wax Trax is literally dead. So I'm not sure what real benefit I have to offer. I'm a singer-songwriter from Wisconsin recording my first EP, and any insight you had would be awesome. Thanks. I mean, yeah, why not? Gotta talk about something sometime, right? Maybe I'll even play a little bit of the demos and stuff. Gummer Bear said, your streams are good for the soul like David the Goods. Good, I'm glad to hear that. Oh, that's funny. Karen says, some of the questions asked to Kirk and his token minority were the ones you suggested on the stream box. That's hilarious. Did you like Baby Metal's Dance, Dance, Dance? It reminded me of your band. I don't think I've heard that one yet. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet. I know Shanti Shanti, or Shanti Shanti Shanti, but um, I heard good things about that, though. I'll have to check it out. Xenophon. Duralex Sedlex says there are times to mellow out and stimulate the nerve endings, and there are times to run roughshod over your enemies and crab rave over their broken bodies as they moan their last agonized breaths. And there are times when you need to settle down a little bit, clearly. Mr. Cooper Bear says, I'll second the request for the Darkstream about the music industry. Thank you for what you do, and God bless. Okay, fair enough. Now I really want to know how old you are. I'm 51. And I also think of the Big Bear as young. At least I can still claim Gen X status. Oh, I'm Gen X. I'm just at the front end of Gen X. Any news on Social Galactic? Yeah, it's coming very soon. Hey, Vox, what were the skies like when you were young? Dr. Zume says, making up for Golet's absence today. Can I request that you do the book review stream sometime on a weekend? Yeah, we're going to have to do that, clearly. No, they've got to be on the weekends. That's the only time we can do the reviews, I think. Mantis Bear says, Vox is such an outsider in the music industry. Well, and my time there was so brief. Yeah, I don't know how relative my work would be either. But, I did meet a lot of people, not that I have much to say about them, musically and stuff. I mean, I actually stayed at, remember Information Society? I actually stayed at his place when I was out in San Francisco once. Went to Deviate with him and his girlfriend. That was cool. Got to meet some folks like all the guys in Guns N' Roses except for Axl, David Lee Roth. I think who else? Number of other folks. It was good. Yeah. Time to do that properly, but I still have all the slides and everything. Maniac Bear says, because you are Vox. Thank you, Maniac Bear. What's your favorite ancient military armor? Well, I prefer the sort of middle Roman legion stuff, but I really like the old, the old sort of classic. Whether they're real or not, I like those old Spartan helmets. I never liked the transverse, like the Centurion transverse plume. That always irritates me. Is it true, Vox, that if you are more than 25% Indigenous American, you can go to college for free? I have no idea. So, 2-Acre North Dakota Bear says, keep crushing, Vox. Thank you. Which autobiographies are in the running to be published under Castalia Deluxe? We haven't gotten to that point yet. What we are planning to do, though, is I think we'll probably do Awaken the Nightland as the second Castalia Deluxe book and not Summa Helvetica, because we've got some other things that we want to do with that first. I've never really listened to it, but I know what Dan Carlin's hardcore history is. I mean, I listened to it for 5 minutes. Welcome to Acre, North Dakota Bear. Favorite weapon of all time? Probably the 357 Magnum long barrel Smith & Wesson. My dad had this 357 that I was particularly good with at the range. Is the deluxe subscription always a totally random bit, or did you want people to voice book interests? No, I mean, we're happy to let people express what books they're most interested in. You know, we know we're going to start with The Missionaries because The Missionaries is, in my opinion, the best book that we have published. You know, it's just a great book, and we really want to get it out there in as many ways as possible. Let's see. Anyhow, just wondering what was your opinion on Arthur C. Clarke? I think he was a great science fiction author. He's some of it, you know, whether it was, I think his short stories in some ways were actually better than his novels. There's one that we publish as part of There Will Be War that's just fantastic. Problem is, I'm pretty convinced that he was guilty of the pedophile charges, and there's reason to believe that. In fact, I think I lay it out on the blog here. Yeah, this was my response to the to somebody who was questioning these things. You know, there's the mirror piece was considered to be false. You know, but that's not what I personally found convincing. It was that U.S. detectives say Clarke was named by other pedophiles they quizzed during an FBI investigation. And police in Sacramento found that Clarke had been in contact with some of these people who got arrested years after he was living in Sri Lanka. It said Clarke's name did keep coming up. We were looking into members of an association who all seemed to know of or be aware of him. He ended up connecting to a lot of people we were investigating. I'd seen letters between him and Arthur C. Clarke, etc., etc. So, anyhow, it's pretty clear that if you look at the evidence that the worst rumors were true. I take no pleasure in that. But you know that you can read that link there. And so, yeah, there's nothing too gruesome or anything there. So, don't worry about that. It's just a very matter of fact statement by the Sacramento police. And again, these were not people who were investigating him. They were investigating other people who were guilty of those type of crimes. People who were actually subsequently convicted, and they were, directly in contact with him for an extended period of time, with no other interest in common that anyone could identify. So, good question from Mike. Should we separate the art from the artist or avoid art by monsters? I am generally a separate the art from the artist type, except when the art is degenerate and informed by the author or by the author's weaknesses, depravities, whatever you want to call it. For example, how is that story that I told you about that's in There Will Be War? There's a couple of them. One of them is this story about a guy a leader who saves the Earth by joining the enemy, and is that actually Arthur C. Clarke's? Maybe not. Well, no, there's another story about how having the better technology actually caused that side to lose the war. And it's a great story. There's another story about a spaceship trying to hunt a unarmed man on a asteroid and being unable to catch him. Another genuine great story. And so, is that informed in any way by anything related to sex? No. So, in that case, I mean, I have no problem with those stories. I have no problem with us publishing some of those Arthur C. Clarke stories, right? But I would not publish Marion Zimmer Bradley, because Marion Zimmer Bradley's stuff is clearly informed by her wickedness. King X said ACC's works are full of disturbing sexual content. Maybe some of them are, but not most of the short stories I haven't. I mean, which works are you talking about? I mean, I think that there's Childhood's End, I think, is obviously anti-Christian and demonic. But, it doesn't even enter into, there is no sexual content at all in any of the stories that I'm talking about. I mean, literally none. Now I never read, I was never really that interested in most of his longer works. I really did enjoy The Fountains of Paradise, but Rendezvous with Rama was boring. I didn't like 2001, so I wasn't particularly interested in his longer fiction. We're not answering questions about where you stand in the social sexual hierarchy. We have absolutely no way of telling you that. Do you have any thoughts on Michaela Peterson and her obvious mental illness? I just feel sorry for her. She just sounds, I mean, if her dad's descriptions are even half true, she's had a horrific life. Defiance Bear says, in the interest of national interest, would there be a case where you'd have moral objections to alliances with shadier leaders' governments? Of course not. Nations have interests and they do what they need to do. Let's see. The assistant editor to Jerry on There Will Be War, and I'm now the lead editor on There Will Be War Volume 11, which we're beginning to put together. So, all right, well, on that note, I need to roll. So have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't backed the replatforming, if you haven't got involved with the replatforming yet, I'd encourage you to do so. Oh, I see. King X said Rama series is playing. Okay, I've never read it, so I defer to your superior knowledge on that. Have a good evening. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.